today to tell you why you suck at it. What's up, guys? I'm here
Hello there, MMO guy.
today to tell you why you suck at EverQuest.
Okay, let's
The
see.
good news is I'm also going to tell you how to get better. And once you see the pattern of thinking here, you'll see that these are really just fundamentals of how to think about games in general. All
Good.
right, so the first reason
I'm game.
why you suck at EverQuest is that you don't understand how to manage resources or how to interpret high versus low value action.
Listen, this is a very simple thing to do. All you have to do is see your health bar and see your mana bar and sit. Anyone who's ever played an MMO understands that you have to sit down in order to regenerate health and mana in this game. Or any game. But the thing is, though, they will not know about that. What they won't know about is the buttons that they're given, which you are going to get to.
The game. EQ is a game of resource management. So your health is a
It's true there are resources.
resource. Your mana is a resource. Your time
Yep.
is a resource. One of the worst offenses that I usually see are players that just refuse to use their mana bar.
Now hold on a second. That person could be AFK, or they could be getting themselves a coffee. Why are you making assumptions about people? You are making an assumption that that guy is lazy and not doing his class right.
If you're a healer and your mana isn't being drained from healing alone, you should probably be contributing something else.
Now hold on a second as well. What if the mobs die very fast? Mobs and EQ can die very, very fast, and I've had situations where mana is almost not drained at all. It's possible to have mana not drain at all.
To your group. Usually damage, but sometimes you could even be pulling. We'll talk about this later. If you're
Yep.
a caster and you find yourself at full mana, you aren't casting enough spells. You need to cast more spells that do damage. It's as simple as that. The problem in these scenarios sometimes can be that pulls are just too slow. If so, you should be volunteering to pull.
Great idea. Bravo. Yes. Let the fucking chatter pull. That's a brilliant fucking idea. You're going to get everyone killed. Brilliant. Oh my god. Let the fucking wizard pull. That is a good idea. That'll teach them for going and not sitting down long enough. That'll teach them, and then everybody will constantly be But in all seriousness, no. If you are a caster, at least for the first 3 expansions, that would be live, Kunark, and Velius, or not live, vanilla, Kunark, and Velius. In vanilla, Kunark, and Velius, you do not have a mount. And enchanters, all casters actually, should be sitting. Every single one of them.
You pulling twice the mobs that your inadequate puller is bringing in is going to bring vastly more value to the group.
But also, hold on a second. Here's another thing. You do not want a person who cannot pull to pull mobs, because you might get more ads than you can control.
Group than you just sitting there on a full mana bar. But what about on the opposite end? What if you find yourself running out of mana? Well, start considering what actions you're taking. Are you a level 12 shaman that insists on buffing the entire group with feet like cat and snake skin? This is a low value action.
And here's another thing. What if that shaman... yes, the shaman could be buffing, but those buffs could keep your whole team alive. I have gone on my shaman, buffing the tank with just the tank alone. Without a funky tunic, without very high regeneration, such as regrowth of the grove, or regrowth from this shaman, in this case, your mana is going to be destroyed very quickly. Once you get Torpor, that's when you always have full health and full mana, because Torpor, you just cast Torpor and then cast 4 cannies and then Torpor and then 4 cannies. And then you keep doing that until you're full health and full mana. But up until then, your health regeneration is going to be, you're going to be at the mercy of your health regeneration. Because your health is a way to turn into mana. But there is a way to tell if a person is doing the wrong thing. The shaman could very well be doing the wrong thing.
These buffs are not going to help you kill.
But a shaman also is not a great healer, too. Shamans have heals, sure, but their heals are weaker than clerics, and they're costly for shamans. And because of that, it means that they go quicker.
Kill faster, or save significant mana in the form of the healing that the targets in your group require. Instead, save that buffing mana so that you can continue to heal your group.
Also, that shaman is not sitting down.
So that they can kill for longer without medding. Or it may even enable you to begin contributing damage to the group. Let's say you're in a group that's pulling single mobs into camp.
And welcome in,
Let's
Raven.
say that they die within 10 seconds. Are you a necro that's casting Funeral Pyre on these mobs? This is a super low value action.
Okay, now this I agree with. See, I answered in this video, I said... I answered the video, I see... See? I agree that people who are casters should watch their mana correctly. And I agree, for example, right here, that this guy could very well be misusing their mana. I 100% agree with this. There is nothing to disagree with this part. And the reason is because casting spells like this, dots, they're ramp up. And ramp up dots are useless for short time battles. In short battles where you're in a group, which is usually what it is, dots have a detriment effect to the group, because the shaman or necro or druid gets more benefit out of a straight up nuke due to how short the battle is, and due to the nature of ramp up on dots. In order to benefit, you would have to be in a duo with another dot class. But I digress.
Taking one time in those 10 seconds for 310 damage, making the damage per mana and the DPS extremely low. Instead, you should consider casting, let's say, Touch of Night twice, and that will do 1400 damage. This is just an example. This example also works for debuffing classes as well. Don't waste mana slowing mobs that die so quick.
I also agree with that. I think that wasting mana on slowing on enemies that are really dying fast and the mobs are hardly draining any health to your tank is kind of pointless. But on enemies that are tougher, obviously you want to slow them. Let's say, for example, if you go from the stables and you're killing the golems to the enemies in the temple area in City of Mist, the damage goes up noticeably, and because of that, you need a slower. And in Omens of War, all of this stuff needs a slower.
Quickly that they don't pay for their cost. This is a low value action. Instead, consider contributing a nuke or some form of damage. The TLDR here is make sure you're converting your available resources into things that will help your group either kill faster or kill for longer without resting.
That made you
Another
doing well.
reason why you suck at EQ is that you have no idea how a group should really be pulling mobs. As we just talked about, EQ is a game of resource management.
Okay, this is where I have the biggest problem. This is where I have the biggest problem in this video, and why I made this video.
If your group has adequate resources to maximize experience, you should always be fighting a mob. And so,
Okay, so here's the big problem with this. You do not want to pull a mob when the cleric is if it costs a lot of resources for that said cleric to heal up. If said cleric has to heal and the tank is dying fast, you do not want to constantly pull. That tank is going to die. That group is going to die. But if the mob is dying fast and the tank is full health, then keep on going. If the tank is barely draining health, then you can keep on pulling. But if the tank is taking a lot of damage from that said mob, because the mob hits hard, then no, you do not want to pull all the time. You want to be putting at a steady pace.
Your puller should pull enough that there is always a mob
I am answering this guy's video.
in camp. One of the worst offenses that I see in this category is when groups expect a tank to pull. This is always the worst option. If the tank is pulling, you can't always have a mob in camp and always be fighting. Instead, there are mandatory gaps where the tank goes to get mobs. So the ideal puller really is someone who is contributing the least to the group's ability to kill mobs, and or the one that loses.
How's that going, Fire? I'm not going to be going on for much longer. I am just making this video because I wanted to answer this guy and what I thought it was wrong. Because I disagree with this guy and I have a problem with what he's saying. He's going to get people killed.
The least impact by leaving camp. This can vary from group to group. So the funny thing is that classes that groups traditionally try to force into pulling roles are some of the worst choices, namely monks and bards. Some of the worst choices is
Hold on.
the one that loses the least impact by leaving camp. This
is a very stupid idea because the reason in the first place why you have Shadow Knights, you have monks, bards. The reason why these three classes are pulling all the time is because they can pull enemies without causing a massive train. If you are pulling outside in Unrest, sure. You could pull in Unrest. Sure, anyone could probably do that. If you're in Blackburrow, that's even easier. But if you're in a high-level dungeon, such as you are in your 50s and you're deep in the hole, you're in really deep. If you pull a massive train, you're going to get everybody killed. If you let someone who is not a main puller in Chardock pull, they're going to get everybody killed. I've had massive trains happen in Carassus, in Howling Stones, and that's wiped the group because we ended up getting a humongous train. And because I was on my necro, I feigned death. And the reason why it happened was the mob fell down a hole. I just imagine having a class who can't pull. So yeah, this is a very stupid idea.
vary from group to group. The thing is that classes that groups traditionally try to force into pulling roles are some of the worst choices, namely...
No, they're not, because they exist for a reason. Bards have tools that are good.
monks and bards. Here's the deal. These days, in XP groups, you're almost never splitting a camp via FD or Fade. It's all about pulling large quantities of mobs into camp quickly.
This will get you killed. Are you explicitly talking about live, or are you talking about the first three expansions?
And ads are generally monks are generally going to be the highest DPS class you can have in your group. So making them leave camp constantly is one of the worst decisions you can make. It'll just slow down your rate of XP. Bards are buffing the entire group.
So here's the thing, though. I have played on live too, and on some of the later expansions, such as on live EQ, if you're pulling from the New Frontier Mountains or whatever, one of the newer expansions where you're 105, you still don't want to overpull because those enemies hit really hard. And if you are in a group, you could very well die if you overpull. So yeah, you want to pull single pulls if you could and just keep on bringing them until the party is done with killing those mobs, and then when people have to med, you med. But you don't want to pull everything.
Haste, attack, mana regen, and sometimes more depending on the expansion. Again, this makes your entire group kill faster while they're in camp. Instead, think about classes that are providing lower value to the group, or a class that loses less by leaving camp. Classes like enchanters, necros, and druids come to mind as great.
Now here's the thing, another thing. Druids are in fact good pullers, but they have a limitation. That limitation is being in dungeons. If you are pulling as a druid in dungeons, you don't have the same benefit as you do outside in outdoors areas, because druids have harmony, and harmony is in outside areas only. Harmony is a wonderful tool. If you have a druid in City of Mist, you can split enemies and pull them very easily. Necros are also great pullers. They are not mainly a DPS class, but rather a assistance class. A class that has a bunch of tools for helping people. They are a utility class, just like druids. They're they can do DPS, they can charm undead things, but they're not very as powerful overall because they are mostly a dot class. They have nukes, but they're not as strong as, say, a wizard. And because of that, they will never be able to do the kind of damage a wizard does. And melee overall is better than wizard up until Luckland, where wizards finally get mana burn. But I digress.
Great example.
Another thing I have a problem with is that you do not want an enchanter running all the way to pull when they have a charm pet, because that charm pet, if it breaks, it'll kill the enchanter before they even pull. And you want an enchanter in a camp in order to crowd control multiple enemies, especially at high levels. Enchanters are wonderful at doing what they do. It is true that the value decreases at higher levels once you get new expansions because they nerfed it. And it is true that some of the other stuff, everybody else gets other tools and later expansions. But let's see what he had to say.
Enchanters aren't needed much for CC, and their DPS is coming mostly from a charm pet. So they're a great candidate to go out and pull mobs. They lose next to nothing for doing so, and they can even use their CC to split or stagger mobs.
Also, another thing I forgot to say is that cleric, enchanters, and mages, and every other class, they need to be sitting down in order to gain mana back. And you want them to have mana because those tools are useful. Shit. I didn't want to do that.
What's up, guys? The DPS in your group. Think about classes aren't needed to split or stagger mobs if really needed. Necros have insane mana regen with Lich, so they're let go out and pull mobs. They lose next to nothing for doing so, and they can even use their CC to split or stagger mobs if really needed. Necros have insane mana regen with Lich, so they're less reliant on needing to sit and med than like a wizard, for example. They're also able to like dot a mob and then send their pet in before leaving camp, allowing them to do damage while being absent from the group.
Now, Necros do have a wonderful thing. Thing about Necros is they are mana batteries. They are a utility class. They have a lot of tools that are for helping the group. They can root. They can dot. They can give you their health. They can give you their mana, and then recover it themselves. They are quite useful in a group. If you are lacking of an enchanter and don't have clarity, or your group is pulling so fast that you can't keep up with the mana, then your enchanter can get help from the Necro. The Necro can give the mana to the enchanter. The Necro can give mana to the cleric. The Necro can help anyone. Cool, Fire.
Again, an example of a class that loses less value while pulling, that are threatening enough that they really need to be in camp spamming heals constantly. I mean, are you fighting mobs that are...
Now, enchanters, druids have a problem. I keep saying enchanter by accident. Druids have a problem where they aren't exactly the best healers. Hi there, Overloaded. I am answering this video of this guy called the Classic MMO Guy, why I disagree with him. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. Oh,
Out of air before anything else.
how you doing? Raven got it before I did.
I did.
I'm answering this person because I think they have a lot of good points in the second video, but at the same time, their video is not perfect. Like, for example, telling a caster...
Oh, shit, you guys. I'm alive.
Having a cleric go out and pull when the cleric should be sitting and medding is a stupid idea. The cleric should be sitting and medding if he's going to be healing. And if you're playing live EQ, you still want to crowd control mobs in live EQ. You don't want to get tons of mobs on level 105. It's nice to see you. I also want to preface that shaman slows also become less useful.
You with all the do.
Yeah.
are threatening.
It's nice to see you. Have a seat and let's see this video together.
That they really need to be in camp spamming heals constantly. If not, maybe they could be a great puller candidate. And
Now, druids have, as I was saying before, they have this one big issue where their heals are not great and their nukes are not that great either. Druids can nuke, I guess, but they're kind of a support class, a support utility class as well. And they have tools that are niche. Some of their tools are great for all moments, like the evac. And other tools are great in very niche moments. They can heal, but their Sow, their Spirit of the Wolf, is not able to be cast in dungeons. They cannot harmony in dungeons. They are niche because of that. And sometimes a Shadow Knight or a Necro is just straight up better, or a Monk, in dungeons just because they can single pull. That is why you want certain classes in outdoors and certain classes in indoors. You got to think about what you're doing when you have certain classes.
even stagger large pulls in with snare or root. If they're in a DPS role, they're probably your lowest DPS in the group, and therefore would lose the least by pulling. Not to mention, like Necros, they also have the opportunity to dot before leaving camp. So again, this is all comes back to resource management.
Also, I want to point out and preface another thing. On my Necro, I used to bring out my dot that does damage to your defense and strength, the disease-based ones. And I used to do that in group only just so that enemies have a slightly lower strength so that it helps the group. I would switch buffs in order to help them to see if it maybe helped a little bit. And it's not massive, but it helps a little bit. So yeah, Necros have other kind of tools that are helpful. And Druids have another dot from that line. They have a fire dot, a fire lick, or something like that. I think it lowers your attack power to something. So you could combine that with the Shaman debuffs and have lower attack power for your mobs.
You're managing the DPS in your group and how you structure it. The person that is contributing the least amount of DPS or is the least necessary to be in the camp while a mob is there is a little bit harder about who we have in our group to pull, and not just automatically assume, oh, I'm this class, so there's no way I can pull.
Now here's the thing, another thing. Yes, it's true that you can pull, but should you pull is a question. Do you want to have a warrior pull in the hole and pull every single mob there is and accidentally get themselves killed or everybody? Probably not. You probably don't want to do that. If you do not have a crowd controller, you do not want to have massive crowds of mobs. I played EQ for a very, very long time, and I mained a bard. I used to be the puller for years upon years. 7 years I played a bard. And I can tell you that if you have massive amounts of enemies, it is a taxing thing in your mana. And the healer might very well go. You want to do everything in your power to not get your group killed, so that you can continue getting XP, because everybody's going to be very unhappy with you if your whole team dies.
Alright, this is a simple one, but it's one that drives me crazy. You have no situational awareness and or you play in first person.
This one I 100% agree with. There is nothing I can say about this one here. I 100% agree with this one. You need situational awareness.
Knowledge is power. This is no secret. Being able to see what is going on around you allows you to anticipate when an event is going to impact your group or raid. The best way to do this is simply to be in third person, constantly rotating your camera to be aware of the things that are happening around you. This could be a lot of things. It could just be seeing a patrolling mob that is about to path into your group.
This one I cannot really say much anything to, because he is right. You should always be aware of your surroundings and whether or not a mob is patrolling. A Necro who is soloing in Carassus, for example, or an Enchanter, you need to know you need to be aware of your surroundings, otherwise you will die. You will pull more enemies than you need and you will die. So what have you been up to, Asmarilla?
Seeing an opposing group encroaching in on your space. Seeing what actions a group or raid actions in a reactionary or of your group or tools that you have in your DQ. There's two big problems with you. Having this information and being able to act on it. So zoom your camera out, spin around, be attentive, and know what's going on around you.
I can't say anything more for that. He is right.
If you don't know the capabilities of other classes, you probably suck at EQ.
This one I 100% agree with. Again, this one I 100% agree with, and I can't really hate on it because this is good advice. This is the difference between an enchanter who knows what they're doing and can use stun, and an enchanter who does not know what they're doing and they get killed and their team killed. If you're playing an enchanter and you do not know how to use your spells, you're going to not be wanted in a group. This guy is 100% right about the tools. You always have to be thinking, how can I do better in this one situation where I have this tool? There's nothing I could disagree with on this one.
There's two big problems with this. One, you don't know the tools that you have in your toolbox, so you can't deploy them to solve problems. Two, you don't have the knowledge to demand more of your group or raid when classes aren't playing to their full potential.
Nice, welcome in. They're overloaded. See, I do agree with this. I definitely agree with this. But there is always room for learning over time. If you play EQ and you group, you will learn, you will get better. That is just a thing that happens over time. It's sort of like baby's first walk. You need to walk before you can run. And then after that, you can run, and then you can do jumps and all that stuff. That's why EQ starts you small. They don't start you with all the tools like in other MMOs where you have tons of tools and it's confusing and they just kill you. EQ is the kind of game where they have limited amount of buttons and stuff, and you have a few spells that you get every level, but knowledge is power. You will eventually become good at this game if you keep doing it. Like I was never good at Enchanter, and I'm still not great, and I'm gotten better since I played Enchanter. You can get better too. I believe in you.
I'll throw out a few examples here. By no means the greatest secrets of EverQuest. Just some things to ponder and ask yourself next time you find yourself in some of these situations. Could XYZ class have helped us out here? Could they have done more? Is the Necro in your group casting the Mind Rack spell line? The first version of this spell is worth 300 mana to everyone in the group every minute. That's 18,000 mana per hour starting in Luckland. This is a huge uptime boost to a group of spellcasters or any group where mana is a bottleneck to pull speed. If your Necro isn't casting this spell, you should probably ask them to. Don't forget that Wizard's Snare Line is an AE. Is there a wipe threatening pull coming into your camp with no measures? Could the Wizard have AE snared and kite Druid to charm? Do you really need to split a tough camp but don't have an FD class with you? For their utility. That's all I got for now, so I'll see you guys.
I hope you don't take this wrong, classic MMO guy. I like this video better than the other video. This one is more informative. I have less to hate on. There are moments where I disagree with, especially
Some form of damage
the
in such a way
constant pulling on classes. I'm making a response to this one guy, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube, and I am pointing out what I disagree with. Like, this guy has said that stats don't matter, and stats do clearly matter. Class really do matter, especially on the first 3 expansions. If you do not have the right stats, it makes a huge impact. It's so impactful that certain classes are desired over others. For example, a shaman is so much better when it is combined with ogre over other races, because that extra stamina and that extra strength are critical to your development. If you start as a barbarian shaman, you are stumped from having the wrong race. And little things like the frontal immunity allows you to survive and tank better and solo greater dragons and stuff like that because you have frontal immunity. It is true that once you start going to later expansions like Planes of Power and onward, the value of the stats becomes less and less, and gear itself starts replacing that. Yeah, but the stats do. An ogre shaman starts with 120 stamina. 120 stamina is quite a lot. And a necro who starts out with 100 plus stamina has extra health. You are correct though, but I am pointing out that gear does matter. If you are playing a shaman and you get a Vindy BP, your HP is going to skyrocket. And I mean skyrocket. Plus your armor class. So you are going to be able to tank better. But this video is good.
There's all
This video is much better than the first one. And I will see you guys on Thursday. I'm going to raid someone. Let me see who I could raid. Let's see. I will raid. Hey, Ernie. It's nice to see you. I will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you guys for being here. Hugs to all of you. It means a lot that you stayed. Hugs to everyone. It means a lot.